Season 1, Episode 9 of Star Academy. So if you have not yet seen the episode, please click away, go watch the episode, and then come back and rewatch this live stream. I want to say hello and welcome to everyone who is joining live. Hello to everyone who is joining on the replay. If you are joining on the replay, there will be timestamps below, perhaps, if they work on vertical shorts, I don't know. But if they do, there will be timestamps below, so you could jump ahead at any time. Yeah, no, this is not the wrong one. You have clicked on the right one. So just so for everybody who is here like live, because y'all know how I roll, I currently have no Wi-Fi in my house. Wi-Fi non-existent in my house. So we are doing this on my phone because when the world gives you lemons, we use our mobile data. So this is how I have to go live today. Hopefully this is coming through. Hopefully you can see and hear me. Hopefully this will be fixed next week because y'all know I like the big screen so I can see your comments and everything. So it's gonna be a little different today. It's gonna be a little harder for me to maybe see your comments. I see them at the bottom, but like, this is my first time going live this way on YouTube. I have my Wi-Fi back next week. In the meantime, we're gonna just review this episode and it's gonna be awesome and we're gonna have a great time. So, let's see. Did timestamps, I did spoiler alerts. I let everybody know there's no Wi-Fi, therefore we are doing it this way today. I know. However, Nadia, I did say first world problems. And then the last thing is, if you are part of the away team, the channel membership, go ahead and drop a bomb emoji in the chat because this episode was explosive. There was so much going on in this episode, like almost too much going on in this episode, but let's just jump into it. So initial thoughts. I didn't really know what to expect for this episode other than I found out, I'm loving seeing those bomb emojis in the chat. I did find out last week that this was going to be a two-parter, which was great because I was so nervous that the season finale was going to be a cliffhanger. And I was like, ugh, because even though I know they just wrapped season 2, like last week or a week ago or whatever, they just finished filming the end of season 2. So I know season 2 is a coming. But I don't know when. I don't know how long it takes to edit things and turn around things, and plus the marketing schedule. So, like, I know some people are like, oh, I love that we get to watch new episodes each week and see what's happening. I don't. I love streaming. Like, I just feel spoiled by streaming. I don't want to go back to the 90s where we have to wait each week. That being said, I really didn't want to go back to the 90s where we had to wait for a whole new season to see if the cliffhanger gets resolved. So hopefully, I'm hoping episode 10, this next episode, which at the time of this recording is going to come out in like 3 hours. I hope this next episode does not leave us on any kind of cliffhangers. I hope it all gets wrapped up because it is part 2, and I hope there's not like a secret part 3. But anywho, I did know that this was going to be part 1, so my expectations were that this was going to ramp up the intensity. Ooh, I love seeing those barrels in the chat and the rocket in the chat. So I knew this was going to wrap up in intensity. I knew it was going to have to circle back to Caleb's mom because we haven't really talked about her since the pilot. And that was the whole point of the pilot, is like Caleb was stripped away from his mom was sent to prison, and now Caleb's on his own, and then he ends up joining the academy rather than going to prison. And then at the end, Braca's like, whatever happened with your mom at whatever place he said, Raga 5 or something, and is like, it's such a shame. And Caleb's like, what happened to my mom? Did she die? Is she alive? So we got that little mention in the pilot. Then we got to see Braca again since then, but no more mentions of Caleb's mom. And I thought she was going to come up in episode 5, the episode that I thought is when Braca was going to return, and it was going to be like, oh my gosh, what's happening? But that didn't happen. That didn't happen until episode 6, and Braca did return, but it didn't really have anything to do with Caleb. He just happened to be one of the kidnapped victims. So anywho, I knew this episode we were going to circle back to Caleb's mom and figure out what's going on with that, what's going on with Braca. We have to do some big bad guy face off. I also knew from a post that the actor who plays Jaden made last week or whatever, saying that the guy who plays Braca is not in season 2. So that made me think he must die in season 1, which is not necessary. He might, be abandoned on some planet Khan style. He may end up going to some prison that he can't break out of this time for reals, but probably he's going to die. So I know that there would need to be some, racketing up of the tension on this episode to lead to that episode. But that was pretty much it. Like that's I knew something like that would happen. I did not know the where, when, how of how that was going to go down. So act 1, I'm calling family identity. This is all about family. So in the first act, in the very beginning, in kind of the cold open of the episode, Jaden is inviting the rest of the cadets into his family. So they're doing this, some kind of Klingon tradition, and he's passing around this bowl of some kind of Klingon wine or booze of some kind. And they say these special words and they drink the wine and they're like, we are now family. And it's like a really sweet moment. You know, it's a really sweet idea of Jaden being like, I feel so close to you. I feel like you guys are family and whatever. Questions though. This is a question for you, my other Trekkie nerds out there who know more about this subject than I do. Here's the thing though, while I was watching this scene, while on the one hand I was like, oh, he's inviting them to his family. On the other hand, I was like, what house? You're inviting them to your house? What house? Like, are you technically in a house anymore because your parents abandoned you? I mean, technically it was your dad's idea, but like your whole family left and left you stranded on a planet. So are you still a part of that house? Because do you remember in Deep Space Nine when, I mean, granted this was a marriage, so maybe this was different, but okay, so not Jadzia, with Worf and joining the house of Martok. And he was like, I want you to join my house. I talked it over with my wife, blah, blah, blah. And it was like a thing to become part of the family, right? And Jaden's just like, you, and you. Family. And I just was kind of like, can he do that? Like, does he still have a house? Or was he sort of disowned by his family abandoning him and now he no longer has a house? I'm not really sure. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. I will say that I did notice that Kyle wasn't in Jaden's ceremony, but that makes sense because Kyle is not Jaden's brother, right? Like, that's the kind of family that he's inviting these people to be like his siblings, not necessarily his like romantic partners. So that made sense to me that Kyle wasn't in it. It didn't make sense to me that Kyle wasn't in the whole episode, but Kyle and Occam, neither of them were in the whole episode. I was like, what? That's weird. I mean, maybe Kyle's fine because he's in the war college, but like, I feel like Occam should have been in the background. Maybe he was in the background and I missed it. But I don't know. I just was like, I don't know if Jaden could do this. Let's say he can. He invites them all to join his house. And everybody's like, yeah, even Sam, who's like, I can't drink, but I'll say the words because yay, family. And then it gets to Caleb and Caleb's like, no, I'm good. And then he walks out. And I just was kind of like, but you knew, I mean, he didn't know what the ceremony was before they got there, granted, because in the beginning, it just shows Genesis going through the halls, just like grabbing the cadets and like bringing them all with her. And they're like, what's going on? And they end up in the ceremony. So he didn't know what he was signing up for. But Jaden gave a whole speech and everything. You know, this is what it means. You're now part of my family. Drink this thing and say these words. So he had plenty of time to be like, no, I'm good. He didn't have to wait until the bowl was literally in his hands to say, somebody else drink mine, okay? You know, like, okay, dude. But anyways, he left, which makes sense because he didn't want to join another family. He saw that as abandoning his family. I get it. I guess so. Nadia says that there's hardly any Klingon houses left, so he could probably just create one. That's true. He could, the House of the Starfleet. He probably totally could. There's that one episode in TNG where Worf kind of adopted a brother. Oh yeah, that's true. That episode. Oh gosh. Yes, with Marla Astor and the little boy whose mom died on the away mission. I don't know. I can't remember the name of that episode. But yeah, there was that episode where it was more like, we're brothers because your mom died on this away mission, so now I feel responsible for you. So I'm going to adopt you as a brother and then also never talk to you or think of you ever again. The bonding. Yes. Thank you. That's what it was. The bonding. Nailed it. So yeah, that is a thing. I guess that's fair. That was like a ceremony that they did. There wasn't wine involved because a minor, they just lit candles. But same idea. So I guess that's fine. I guess it's different from what Worf did with Martok, where it was more of a like, this is your new name. You're now a part of us. This is more of like a ceremonial, more like a godparent situation, maybe, than like like a mother-in-law, sister-in-law situation. Maybe that's what's going on. Oh, he said the same speech. Did he say the same words? Was it the exact same words? Okay. So he does this whole thing, and Caleb's like, no, I'm good. And so he leaves, and everyone's like, which, yeah, I would agree. Awkward. Caleb leaves. After he leaves, he runs into Tarima. Do we care? I do not. But he runs into Tarima. They're still feeling awkward around each other. Okay, fine, whatever. And he goes to his room to just kind of, I guess, think through what just happened. Like, what did I just do? What's going on? What am I feeling? Because he's feeling a lot of big things about, like, is my mom still alive? I don't want to abandon her and, whatever. And then Sam just pops up into his room and he's just like, Sam, you can't keep doing that. You can't keep popping in and out. And she's like, of course I can. I'm a hologram. I can do this all day long. And they just kind of commiserate. And Sam shares, okay, it was the same Klingon words. Okay. Sam shares that she just does not she does not like nor respect the person she used to be. Well, let me see if I can scroll in this. Ooh, I can scroll in the chat. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not loving the time change so far, but I'm glad you're enjoying it. So Sam shares that she does not like or respect the person she used to be because she has the memories of old Sam and she also has the memories of new Sam. And she's just like, I was just a dipstick. And Caleb is like, well, yeah, you were less than 1 year old. What do you expect? You were not even a toddler. And then Caleb's also like, yeah, but you were funny and you're this and you're that. You know, have an enthusiasm and you're still all of those things. And just is totally like hyping her up, which I thought was really nice and sort of out of character for Caleb. And Sam just can't hear it. She's just like, no, I was dumb. Like, I don't like that person. I want to figure out who I am. And she even says later on in the episode, every decision I've ever made has been pre-programmed. I just want to be my own person and make my own choices and become my own person, like have my own life. And that is very appropriate to the times, right? Because she's supposed to be a 17-year-old girl. So that totally makes sense. While they're chit-chatting, Sam kind of gives him the unlock that he needs to figure out the encryption that his mom has been using all this time, because that also ties back all the way into the first episode, which is how Braca found him in the first place, is that he had been sending messages to his mom over the secure frequency for the last 10 years, 15, I don't remember how many years it was when he was a kid to when he's in the academy, but let's say 10. The last 10 years, he's been sending these encrypted messages of like, Mom, can you hear me? Mom, are you still alive? Mom, are you going to come get me? And that's how Braca found him in the first place, because he, being, involved with his mom and on whatever levels, he already knew what the encryption was. And so he was able to capture the ship and all the things. So he's been trying to break this encryption all this time, ever since the pilot episode. And Sam is like, well, you remember that when your mom was taken away, you were only 6. So, I guess it was 15 years. Yeah. You were only 6. So she's like, try a code that a 6-year-old would know, not like grown up you with all these algorithms and encryptions. You wouldn't know that as a 6-year-old. So your mom is going to pick something that 6-year-old you would know. And she says this thing, which is really cute, where she's like, I was 6 once too. And that's kind of like old Sam. I just thought that was really cute. I was 6 too. I did that. I had that experience. I get it, like you organics, Anyway, so he figures out the code, he cracks it. And then he gets a code from his mom, who's like, Caleb, come and find me. I'm on the planet something. I don't remember the name of the planet. I'm on the planet something. Come and find me. I'll be here for 3 more hours. I'm moving on to the next planet. Hurry. And so Caleb's like, I've got to go find my mom. Da, 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 da. So he's off to go find his mom. And the first place he goes is to Captain Ake to be like, I need your help. You need to help me find my mom, because that was your whole promise when I came here in the first place. But when he walks in, lo and behold, he overhears a conversation between her and Vance and Chancellor Kelrick, saying basically that Noose Braga is on some stuff, and he has stolen, like during the kidnapping episode I just mentioned, Noose Braga orchestrated all of that so he could steal something from a space station. And it turns out whatever he stole allowed him to create these mines. They're basically like space atom bombs. And when they explode, they destroy all of space in that area, such that a warp capable ship cannot do warp travel in that area. So I don't know. I guess they have to paddle. I'm not really sure can they do impulse? I don't know. Can they go through the space at all? Or is the space like you just can't traverse it anymore? And similar to a nuclear bomb, it's like, it destroys space for like millions of years, and it'll never recover that. So he's gotten this ability to create these mines from whatever he stole from wherever, and he's detonated one somewhere. It's like by an uninhabited planet, kind of as a show of force. And they're like, what is he doing? Like, why would he detonate this bomb in the middle of nowhere to let us know he has it? He could have just used it on us and we would have been none the wiser until it exploded. But they're like, I don't know, who can ever figure out what Noose Braga is doing? So they're like, we're just going to respond by calling all Federation ships back to protect Federation space. This always cracks me up about space. I don't know about you, but it's one thing on land that's like two-dimensional, to kind of like longitudinally and latitudinally break up lands and say like this is the border between these two lands. But it makes no sense to me in space, like where space is round and you're like, this is the Federation space. This is other space. Like, how do you... I don't know, but somehow this is decided. There are maps, space maps, that say that this is the Federation zone. And so they're calling in all the Federation ships to protect the Federation planets from Noose Braga's nonsense. And they're all heading at this moment to the center, the seat of government, which is now on Beta Z. So they're heading towards Beta Z. They're going to evacuate all the cadets onto the planet. And then I guess the ships are going to stay in orbit to like protect and defend themselves or something. But how do you defend yourself against an atom bomb? What's the protection? What are they going to climb under tables? Like, what are they going to do? I'm not really sure, but this is the plan. So they pull them all in, and Caleb overhears this. So he's like, okay, if that's the case, Captain Ake is never going to let me go and find my mom, because they're all shutting everything down, locking everything down, and they're trying to protect everything. And in addition, the planet that she happens to be on right now is about to be annexed by the oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking on the name, the Venari Rawl. They're about to be annexed by the Venari Rawl. So somehow they know this. I guess the Venari Rawl sent a note letting them know that within the next couple of hours, this is going to be their territory. So Caleb is like on the clock. And so he comes in, and Ake's like, what do you need? And then he overhears this, and he's like, oh, nothing. It could just wait. It could wait till later. So he decides to sneak away. Okay, I'm going to check the chat real quick, and then we'll go to the next part. Super excited, Nadia, to have you here. I'm glad you're awake enough to participate. I'm glad I'm awake enough to participate. Whoop, whoop. Inconsistent, though. She didn't make her own unprogrammed decision in the Cisco episode when she told her photonic overseers to give her a break. Yeah, I would agree. Lead-lined fridges, duck and cover. Exactly. We're all just going to hop in the fridge like some really bad Indiana Jones movie. Yeah, she's inconsistent in this whole I've never made a decision that hasn't been programmed. I don't know if I would say inconsistent. Maybe I would just say incorrect, because she's made all kinds of decisions. But you could argue that all of her decisions are based on her programming, because she is based on her programming. But you could make that same argument with us, that all of our decisions are based on our, DNA or something like that. So I don't know if it's inconsistent or just like she's just wrong. Like, she's made lots of choices, and they all come from her programming, her choice of this or that, like all kinds of things. Yeah, exactly. Duck and cover, a time-tested tradition. Can't fail us now. So, Act 2. I am calling The Escape Part 1. There's a lot of escaping in this episode. So Caleb is like, okay, I'm going to steal a shuttle, and I'm going to go save my mom, Superman style. So he runs to the shuttle bay, and when he walks in, Sam is there. And he's like, oh, Sam, you can't just keep popping into places. And she's like, once again, sure can. Absolutely, I can do that. So he's like, well, I'm not going to risk your life. I'm just going to risk my life. And then Sam is just like, okay, but you can't do all these calculations and possibly navigate this thing safely, because you do not have a computer's brain, and I do. So I'm coming. And Caleb's like, okay, fine, you're coming, but just you. And then Genesis walks in, and she's like, hey guys, what's going on? And Caleb's like, oh, I forget who says it, but one of them is like, oh, Caleb's going to go find his mom, or maybe he's like, I found my mom. I don't know. And then Genesis is like, are you crazy? You can't steal a shuttle. And they're like, what are you even doing here? And she's like, I volunteered to check the before we all get locked down. And, I just noticed that the door was open, and so I came in. Okay, did we need this? Did we need this in order for the crew? I get they needed a small group of cadets to go on this crazy mission so that they could be saved. But the reasoning just seems weird to me, that Genesis is like, oh yeah, I volunteered to check the shuttle bay, and that's how come I found you guys. Volunteer to check that. That's what sensors are for, girl. Like, y'all could have done a sweep. Boop, boop. No one in there. Boop, boop. 2 people in there. Like, I don't understand. This makes no sense. Then, on top of this, I could be like, okay, well, she is an overachiever. Like, she does like to volunteer for things, maybe. Then, Darum stumbles in, drunk off of his behind, I guess from the Klingon wine, from, like, the ceremonial family wine. I don't remember why he was drunk. Grace, if you're still on, you might know, because you always know, like, the little things that I miss. But, yeah, why was he drunk? Maybe he drank all the Klingon wine. But he stumbles in, and he's like, hey, guys, what's going on? And it's kind of like, okay, also, what are you doing here? Did you also volunteer to check the shuttle bay? Why is he here? But I don't think they could, like, contrive a reason for that. So they don't. So they don't give a reason. He's just like, hey, guys, and he just, like, straps himself in. And he's sitting there, and but this did lead to my very favorite Darum line of all time, where he's like, Kyonians lack the enzymes to process alcohol or something. Which, again, did we see that in the episode when they went clubbing? Anyways, he's like, yeah, we lack that enzyme. And Genesis is just like, I thought you lacked the enzyme to break down bananas. And he goes, we lack a lot of enzymes, Genesis. And I laughed out loud at that line. That was so funny. Like, Coyote's like, a lot of enzymes. And so he's like, whatever. And like, he sits down, and then at one point he vomits all over himself. But because Coyoteans vomit glitter, it's not disgusting. Scratch that. It's slightly less disgusting, slightly more magical. So, and then Caleb's just like, well, now that it's out of him, he'll be all sober, which is how they explain why he's not a drunken mess when they get to the planet. It's like they painted themselves in these corners that they then had to like write themselves out of, that like you didn't even have to go there. There could have been some other way, but maybe there could have been. So anyways, they zoom off, and there's like some transwarp conduit nearby, so that way the trip is going to be super, super short, even though the trip is like the planet's far away. So I was wondering about those. Do you think those are the Borg transwarp conduits, and they're just like free public use now? They're just like the transit system? That'd be interesting. Or are they the Vardwar warp transit systems? Or is this something new? Because like, I don't remember hearing about these before, but I might have just missed it. But I thought that was neat. That it was like, oh, there's a transwarp conduit like 2 feet to the left. If we just hop in that, we can hop in, hop out in 15 minutes. We'll be like however many light years away. Which also, do these space bombs affect that? Oh, they were Borg and progeny. Okay, so they were from the Borg. Okay, so do these space nukes affect those conduits? Because if not, maybe warp travel could be limited around the areas where the bombs have been exploded or whatever. But maybe people can still hop into a conduit and like beep beep and kind of like Mario warp pipe their way to other systems. That'd be interesting. Well, that's not going to happen because they're going to save the day. But that would be interesting nonetheless. Yeah, I exactly. Darum's body doesn't have the enzymes to process the alcohol or anything else. It reminds me of season 1 TNG, where Troy just randomly walks into the transporter room to see what folks are doing. Yeah, it's, or when I want to say Colmini, what's his name? O'Brien. When O'Brien just walks into places randomly and is just like, hey, oh look, there's a second Picard, and it's like, dude, what are you doing here? Who's in the transporter room? Yeah, it was totally that moment. I would love to know where those transport conduits came from. Maybe Starfleet has the tech now. Yes, they do collapse subspace, so it would also collapse tunnels. Oh, bummer. Okay, space bombs destroyed subspace. Okay, so the tunnels wouldn't keep working. Well, anywho, the kids are on their way. They hop in the conduit. 15 minutes later, they're at the planet. Unfortunately, it was a rough landing, so the shuttle's all like banged up and stuff, and they can't just turn around and go home. They need to repair the ship before they could go home. But that's fine, because he had plenty of time to find his mom, which is the whole reason they all came. Technically, it's the reason Caleb came, and it's the reason Sam came. Sam came because she wanted to be a rebel, and she wanted to do something that was not programmed. And Genesis and Darum came because Sam kidnapped them, because she did not want Genesis to tell on Caleb and somehow get them stopped or get them shut down. She was like, you're not going to ruin Caleb's chance at finally seeing his mom. Darum, though, stay or go. I don't think that would have made a difference, but whatevs. He stayed. We're moving on. So they get to the planet in about 15 minutes. And Captain Ake finds out almost immediately, like 37 seconds after they leave. It's like, Captain, someone has just taken a shuttle and like gone through a transwarp conduit. And she's like, who was it? Boop, it was Caleb and friends. Okay, so our scanners are working. So we didn't need Genesis to go down there to know, because our scanners are okay. So anyways, that leads to our next part. Because Ake's alerted immediately, she's like, okay, great, now I have to go save these kids from certain destruction. However, Admiral Vance is standing right there. I mean, he's standing there in like holographic form, but he's standing there and he's just like, you know, you can't go. The order is for the planets, you know, all the ships to come back around the planets. But he doesn't say this. He just gives her a look. And she looks at him and she goes, I will do as ordered. I will empty the ship onto the planet, and then we will just return to orbit, where we will stay and wait for instructions. And Vance is like, don't BS me. I know exactly what you're going to do. It's exactly what I would do too. Go after the kids. It's fine. But just know that since you're leaving Federation space, we will not help you. I'm not going to give you an order to go. I'm not going to give you an order to do anything. However, just know if you get stranded, get in trouble, if anything happens, you're on your own, because we need all of our ships here. And so she's like, great, cool, thanks. I'll be back in, let's see, the conduit's right there, 35 minutes. I'll be right back, right? He's like, all right, cool, see you then. So now we get to Act 3, where we end up on the planet. Okay, Star Trek does this often, where they do scenes that are kind of like, they give very much Star Wars vibes. And that could be because Star Wars was kind of like the origin, the genesis of what alien planets and alien communities should look like, right? The cantina scenes and the world, Tatooine and all of that. Like, I think Star Wars just created that in the public conception of like what it should look like. And that's maybe why a lot of other sci-fi, when they do this, it looks very Star Wars to me. But in the past, I'm thinking specifically of TNG, every time they did these like Star Wars cantina scenes, it just did not hit the mark to me. I mean, it made sense to have like Ferengi because, aliens we're familiar with kind of skulking about, but there was always some part of it that was weird and off. In Discovery, I think they nailed it. In season 5, they have this planet, this dusty, very Tatooine place that they go to, and I think it's beautiful. I think it's gorgeous. I think they killed it, and I'm obsessed. This, I am also obsessed. I love this planet scene. I was like, as soon as they landed, I was like, okay, here we go. It's another Star Wars kind of place. How are they going to do it? Is it going to look good, or is it going to look cheesy and embarrassing? And it looked awesome. I loved it. The aliens, again, were pretty subtle. I think that's where Star Trek gets it wrong, when they try to do these big, because Star Wars gets it wrong here also. They do these really big costumes sometimes, or really small aliens, and they just look weird and dumb, and they like kill it, like in a bad way. But so much of it is awesome that it kind of like covers up for the stuff that's not awesome. So they didn't do that, is what I'm saying. The planet looked amazing. The set looked amazing. They get to this planet. Yes, Star Trek 5 opening looked exactly like Star Wars. It looked exactly like a scene from Tatooine. You could just see the little droids going around to fix the ship. Like, you could just see that in your mind. But this, they nailed it. It looked amazing. So we get to the planet, and the kids all split up to find parts to go and fix their shuttle. So they're all kind of like going around trying to get all the things that they need. And Caleb is going around looking for his mom. Now, he does tell them, hide your comm badges, because on this planet and in this neighborhood, everybody hates Starfleet. So if anybody sees that you're Starfleet, they're just going to kill you on sight. Unfortunate. Why is there so much animosity towards Starfleet? I don't know. Guessing it's post-burn something. But in any case, they all have that warning. They all split up. Caleb ends up finding his mom pretty quickly. And he like follows her to some dark alley, and she nearly knifes him to death. And then he's like, Mom, it's me, Mom. And she looks at him, and she's like, Caleb. And they have this really sweet moment where they just hug. And I was here for that. I loved it. Yeah, exactly. These are not the droids you're looking for. It's like, these are not the cadets you're looking for. I loved that. And then they actually give us more. I thought that was all they were going to give us, because they just like had this hug, and then it was kind of like fade to black. And I was like, oh, I feel like there should be more for this, 15 years in coming reunion. But then they gave us more. In the next scene, it was the two of them just like holding and embracing and talking about like, where have you been? How are you? What's going on? And it was just really beautiful, and it really just touched my heart. I loved it. It's probably one of my favorite parts of this episode was just the two of them just looking at each other and being like, you're here, you're real. Like, that was just really sweet. If you have never seen the show called Relative Race on byutv.org, or on YouTube, highly recommend it. Like, it's people who have never met their biological family members, and they're going to find them in this race, like this 10-day race, and each day they meet a different family member. And it is just like, it is beautiful. It's amazing. It's heartwarming. And it really made me so grateful for my family. This reminded me of that. Like, this scene was like, oh my gosh, this happens so often on that show, where people are just like, oh my gosh, seeing each other's faces and stuff is beautiful. So we have that. And then Caleb's friends show up. And Caleb's mom, Anisha, is not too happy about that, understandably, because she doesn't like new people. She doesn't trust strangers, and she's been living on the streets for all this time. And so she's like, who are these people? And Caleb's like, oh, they're friends. And she's like, friends from where? And keep in mind, her last words to him, her final words, as she was dragged away to prison for a 20-year sentence, her final words were, don't trust Starfleet. So the last thing he's going to say, these are my friends from Starfleet. So she's like, where are these friends from? And he's like, just from all over, like just the all over friends that we all have. And so she's like, show me your nails. And so they're all like, okay. And they show her their nails. And then she's like, all of your nails are clean. You look well nourished, well fed, well cared for. What kind of friends are these? Because she's like, well, if they're street urchins, then they should look a little more grubby and less cared for and a little more hungry. And they look pretty happy, healthy, and safe. So what kind of friends are these exactly? Which is ironic that she would see kids who look happy, healthy, and safe, and then see that as a red flag, and would be, less concerned if they came in looking like ragamuffins, if they came in looking all rough and dirty and unkempt and, you know, not well fed and probably really shifty and shady and like they're going to steal stuff because they never know when they're going to get another chance to get, you know what I mean? Like, apparently that would have been more acceptable to her because it would have matched what she pictured for him, which actually makes sense because that was the life he was living up until he was found by Ake. Anywho, she's like, okay, great. She helps them kind of repair the one last thing that they need for the ship to get on its way. And she's like, great, here you go. You have your stuff. Now I'm going to go talk to some random cargo freighter captain, and I'm going to let him know that you and I are coming on board. I'm going to make sure there's room for both of us, and we'll both come on board as like engineers. You know, we'll both like help fix stuff so that for passage. And so he's like, okay, Mom, sounds great. And she's like, stay here, kiddo. And she leaves. And then his friends turn and they're like, what the F, Caleb? You're leaving? Like, you're just going to go with your mom to some random freighter? Like, you didn't tell us this was part of the plan. And he's like, she's my mom. Kind of like it wasn't necessarily part of the plan. Like, he hadn't thought this much through. However, now that the opportunity has presented itself, he's not going to let his mom go away. And also, he's not going to tell her that he's in Starfleet. So now he's kind of between a rock and a hard place. It's like, I found my mom, but he hadn't been thinking past that point. Understandably so. He's a kid. He only needs to think to that point. But now that he's found his mom, it's like, what do I do next? So he's like, yeah, I'm going to go with my mom. I can't leave her. She's my mom. And then the cadets are all trying to guilt trip him. They're like, wow. So I'm trying to say this with a straight face. Wow. You're going to leave Starfleet for your mother? It's just like, yes, I'm going to leave Starfleet for my mother. It's still going to be there. It's going to be there. It's going to be there. Okay. Like, Caleb can come back at any time. The whole agreement was he would come to Starfleet instead of prison, and Ake would help him find his mom. He has found his mom. I don't understand. I don't understand why the cadets were so aghast at the idea that he would leave. This was the same thought I had with the whole episode where Darren was getting married, that dumb episode, where Jaden was just like, wow, Darren, you're turning your back on Starfleet just so you could lead your people? Yes! If you're supposed to be the crown freaking prince of this whole planet, that was always part of the deal, is that you were going to leave Starfleet to do this. Yes! Like, I don't know, they're trying to be like, you should be loyal to Starfleet, but my question is like, why? Don't get me wrong, I love me some Star Trek, but like, why? Why would Starfleet be above like family, friends, any other kinds of loyalty? Why? Especially as these are the first, you know, these cadets, it's their first year in Starfleet. It's not like, I would say Genesis, she is like, if you cut her, she bleeds Starfleet, okay? Because her dad's an admiral, so that makes sense. Sam was programmed, so her only loyalty really should be to the founders. Not the founders. What are they called? The makers. Caleb should hate Starfleet and have no loyalty towards them whatsoever, or maybe like the tiniest bit of trust that's been accrued over the last year. But it shouldn't be like, forget my mom. It's Starfleet. Darren should have no allegiance to Starfleet over his family. Like, this just doesn't make sense. Jaden, maybe just because his family disowned him, but not because Starfleet's been the best friends to him and all Klingons. I don't know. Anyways, whatever. It didn't make sense to me. But he tells them this, and they're all aghast. So then he starts doing that thing that they do on TV where somebody's really mean to you to try to push you away, so that way you feel better about leaving them behind. So he's like, Genesis, you're never going to live up to your dad's shadow. Ha, take that. And Darren, you suck, and you always suck. And Sam, you know, and he's just trying to be like a mean guy, which again, we talked about this last week. Do you remember he had that speech towards Tarima where he was all like, hurting me is not going to make you feel better, Tarima. And he had all this like emotional maturity. Guess that's out the window, because this week he's like, you suck, and you double suck, and you triple suck, you know, to just be mean to them, to try to push them away. But what I do like in this scene is that when he turns on Sam to say something really mean, she just grabs him and just holds him, and she's just like, you're so full of it, you know. She's just like, I don't buy this for 1 second. You don't mean any of this. She didn't say all this, but like, you know, I don't buy this for 1 second. You don't mean any of this. You're just like, you know, you're leaving, and I'm really sad about that. And I thought that was sweet that she just like embraces him. And Genesis is just like, he means every word of it. He thinks he's the smartest one in the room. That's what he tells himself. And she's like, let's go. You know, they all leave, and it's just the most, I don't know, it's the most like teeny boppery thing one could imagine. But this is what happens. And so they leave, and Caleb's like, yeah, better go. And I kid you not, the Starfleet cadets are all of 25 feet from the hut that they were just in before they get immediately captured by the Venari Rawl and chained to a post in the middle of the market. I honestly thought, and maybe this is true, maybe we'll find this out in part 2, but I honestly thought from the speed with which these cadets were caught, I thought Anisha told on them. I thought she called it. I thought she knew that they were cadets. I thought she knew they were Starfleet. I thought she was trying to get them caught so that she and Caleb could escape in the commotion because of how quickly they were caught. I mean, they walked out the door and it was like, freeze, you're Starfleet. It's like, how did you know? The only way they could have known is if somebody told them. So that's what I thought. But then, and then Anisha comes back and she's like, Caleb, let's go. And Caleb's like, what are they going to do to those cadets? And Anisha's like, I don't know, probably kill them or whatever. That's usually what they do. Let's go. And Caleb's like, Mom, I can't leave. I got to help my friends. I mean, that's pretty callous. Caleb's like, I got to help my friends. And so when he goes back, then she's like, oh man, okay, let me go back. But I'm like, that was a little too fast. Like, I wonder if she just dimed them out so that way she and Caleb could escape. But then she defends them later on and tries to protect them. So then I was like, maybe she doesn't, or maybe she wasn't trying to protect them. Maybe she was still trying to protect Caleb. I'm not really sure. But that's the next part. Let me check the chat real quick before I go into the next part of the episode. Nadia says, speaking of Darum and Jaden, does anyone else feel like the writers are setting up too many love triangles in the show? Like Jaden plus Kyle, and Jaden plus Darum, and Darum plus Genesis, and Genesis plus Caleb, and Tarima plus Caleb. It's just too much. It's so funny you say that because I was looking at the poster for the show, and it's like all of them like laying in the grass and holding hands and stuff and just looking super cute. It's just looking happy, healthy, and like life is just the best. And they're all kind of like leaning on each other and they're all kind of holding hands. And I was like, I had that same thought. I was like, okay, because in the first episode, it was very much this, tension between Caleb and Genesis. And that lasted for all of 10 seconds. Then it was just over. Then it was all about Tarima. And then it sort of came back when Tarima was off world. And then it like was mentioned again when Tarima came back. But yeah, it's a lot of love triangles. And I don't know if they're all totally necessary. And I don't know if they're all totally working. I agree with you that it's too much. I think a strong, I'm thinking of The Office, if you ever saw The Office, like the Jim and Pam situation, to just have like a more focused love triangle that you can really like amp up and mess with is easier, I think, to write cool stories about than just doing love triangles between every single person on the show. Because that gets more soap opera-y and it's harder to track and it's less interesting, in my opinion. So much writing inconsistency. Maybe the writers don't talk to each other. Yeah, I have no clue. So you remember how I said last week it was Dawson's Creek. This week was all 90210. So that brings us to our next part, Act 4, Escape, Part 2. So now we're at Act 4. At this point, the cadets are chained to a post in the middle of the market, and the Venari Raw have captured them, and they're walking around. They're beating the absolute stuffing out of Darum for some reason, and then they're threatening him. They're asking all the cadets, like, are you Starfleet? And they're like, I'm not going to say anything. So they punch Darum in the face. Are you Starfleet? I'm not going to say anything. So they punch Darum in the face again, and Darum's like, ha, 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 just spitting out the blood and all of that. I want to like the scene, because I do love action movies, and this is a classic action moment when like Indiana Jones gets captured or whoever gets captured, and then someone's trying to get the information out of them, and they beat him up, and then they're just like, ha ha ha, you can't get me. Like I do love that like cliche. I love that trope so much. But in this episode, I was just like, again, like, it just is weird. All of it's weird. So they find them and they're like, freeze, you're Starfleet. And they time to a post, okay. And then they walk around them in this big circle saying, everybody, look, we have captured Starfleet people. These people must be Starfleet. Are you Starfleet person? Punch him in the face. I don't know. It just seemed like a show for whom? Like, who is this display for exactly? I'm not sure. So lots of big question marks. But that's what's going on. So then Caleb rushes back and he's like, shoot, I got to do something to save my friends. And then Anisha runs back to be like, shoot, I got to do something to save Caleb. And while this is going on, Ake has now arrived. The Athena has arrived and they are in orbit, but they can't quite get a fix on the cadets for reasons. I forget what reasons were, but it was something about interference, something. So they had to keep getting closer, and they were like, can you hear me? Can you hear me, cadets? Can you hear me? And so Ake is like calming over. So of course, in this inopportune moment when they're all trying to pretend like they're definitely not Starfleet, for reals, for sure, not Starfleet, the comm badge starts chirping, and you hear, this is Captain Ake, respond. This is Captain Ake of Starfleet Athena. You know what I mean? Like, she's like blowing their cover. And so they're all like, womp womp. They're looking around at each other. And they actually, also, this is a question I had. They know that Sam is holographic. How do they know that? Because she is also tied to the post, just like the organics. How is she tied to the post? So many questions. That cracked you up because it was ridiculous? Yeah. I don't know which part cracked you up, but the whole thing, I was just like, wait, huh? So she's tied to the post also, and the bad guy, the main Venari Rawl, who's doing the speech, walking around in circles, is like, don't you try to go anywhere, hologram girl, because if you blink out of here, I'm going to kill one of these two. Okay, well, shoot, she could have blinked out before you made that threat. Why is she still here? She could have blinked out long before you even threatened her on that. She could have blinked right behind you, slit your throat, blink behind you. Like, I don't know. I feel like Sam should be super overpowered and is not. And I get she's 17, but also she should have some kind of like desire to continue to exist. And a 17-year-old anything has some kind of fight in them to like not die. So for her to just be locked up and be like, oh, I don't know. Like when she could poof around, and I don't know, that didn't totally make sense, but whatever. Maybe that's the challenge with having a holographic cadet. So that's going on. And Caleb takes one of the comm badges and he lifts it in the air and he clicks it so that way Ake can hear everything he's saying. And he's like, there's some guy down the street who's selling these. That's where the sound came from. He's selling these Starfleet comm badges, and like, what a terrible guy. You should go find that guy. Also, we're right now located in the market downtown, 3 inches to the left. Like, he starts giving all their location and stuff, and Ake's like, and she's listening up on the Athena, and she's like, okay, so they found Anisha, they're in the marketplace, they're like, she's getting all the information, and he's like, you shouldn't be killing a bunch of kids just because of stupid Starfleet tech, right? And then the Venari Rawl is like, oh, so you're with them. And he's like, no. And then Anisha shows up and she's like, oh no, I saw them come in on like this other freighter. They're definitely not Starfleet. They didn't come in on that Starfleet shuttle that's in orbit. That's just a coincidence. And so then the Venari Rawl turns and says, oh, so you're with them also? And she's like, no. And they're like, do you know this guy? And she's like, I don't know who Caleb, my son, is. I don't know who that guy is. You know, and you're just like, okay. Very quickly, it's clear that this is not working. So Anisha pulls out a weapon and just starts blasting people. Ah! Okay, so this was my favorite part of the episode. This part. My second favorite was like the connection between Caleb and Anisha. My first favorite, though, was this, where she's just like, well, I guess the jig's up. Pew, 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 pew. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so then Caleb starts knocking people out, and then I don't know. I guess Genesis just poofs out of the cuffs because she could have done that at any time. I don't know. But they try to uncuff the cadets. They're fighting. You know, there's all this fighting going on. And then at some point, Anisha gets shot. And I was like, no, because Caleb has been looking for her for 15 years. They have reconnected for like 15 minutes and she's already shot. And I have a feeling that this character is not going to last for long. So I was like, come on, you can at least give us to the end of the next episode. Like, come on. But she's shot and she hits the ground and Caleb's like, no. And I'm like, oh my gosh, please, like, do not let this character die so soon. I want to see more of her. And Ake is just like, can you get closer? Can you get a lock? Make sure you get a lock on Anisha. And they're like, oh, we can't get, it's just the doctor and Reno because reasons. Again, Thok is not in this episode either. Why is it these three that are on this mission? I don't know. It makes sense for the doctor because 1, he's the doctor. And 2, his daughter is on this away mission. You know, this away mission on this like crazy like runaway journey. But why Reno? I think it's just because Reno's another fan favorite, but it would make more sense to have literally anyone else but Reno. Like, but okay. So Thok is back on the planet with the cadets. Anywho, she's like, can we get closer? And Reno's like, no, we can't. Like, we still can't quite get along from orbit. So I love this part. Ake is just like, man, F it. Land this ship. Get as close as you need to get these kids. So she's like, all right, going in. And so while Caleb is like cradling his mom's body and the kids are like looking around, you know, afraid that any minute is going to be their last, all this wind just blasts down and everyone's like, oh, and then you look up and you just see the Athena like going shh, like coming straight down on all of them. And I was like, oh, this is a cool shot. Again, this is a moment where I was like, I love this set so much. I love it. I love everything about this set. And everyone's like, oh, and the ship just comes down. It's like, and then it beams them all up, and it does that like that Discovery style beam up that they do, where it's like, you know, it doesn't go, it doesn't do that with like the glitter and like it takes time. It does this like this like flat. I can't do the sound effects, but whatever. So it was just like poof, 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 and puffed them all back to the ship. And then they're like, get us out of here. So Reno's like, go, go, go. And they turn the ship and they fly out. And they get like barely through the planet's atmosphere. And they are immediately surrounded by Venari Rawl. And they all put tractor beams on them, and the ship is going nowhere. They are stuck. They are stranded. And Ake's like, oh, crap. Can you get us out of here? And Reno's like, no. Oh, sorry. Act 5 on the Athena. So now we're on the Athena. And immediately after breaking orbit, they're surrounded by the Venari Rawl, and they cannot move. They cannot move one more inch. If they keep trying to resist, the ship is going to just be torn to shreds by these transporter beams, by these tractor beams. So Ake's like, fine, do a saucer separation. And I was like, yay! Yay. Yes, saucer separation. Exactly, when Grace. I mean like the actual bridge crew of the Athena from episode 1, or even just one member of that bridge crew, like the pilot, perhaps? Because did you notice that even though there were only 3 people on the bridge, Captain Ake, the doctor, and Reno, why was Captain Ake still sitting in the captain's chair? Girl, there's only 3 people flying this whole ship. Take a station. Move the station to your chair. Like, you could usually, you know, manage the station from your chair, from your like your armrests. You could pull up a panel or push a button. Why do you have 3 people on this ship, and 2 of them are currently working? And I get that the captain is usually the big picture thinker, but that's because they are talking to several people. They are coordinating whole departments and department heads. There's usually another dozen people on the bridge that they're like giving instructions to. But when there's only 2 other people, you need to be at a station yourself, ma'am. We need to have like somebody flying this ship. We need to have some kind of weapons and defenses. We have something going. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. So Ake's like, fine, do the saucer separation, which I didn't know they could do that. I guess I did know, because they did separate the whole ship in the first episode when they got to Starfleet. Like every single piece of the ship could break apart. So I guess I just forgot that. But this was so cool, and so like just so warmed my heart about the TNG saucer separation, which we only saw twice. And Discovery could also do a saucer separation. I don't know how many times we saw it, but for sure we saw it in season 5. And anyways, the Athena saucer like comes up, and Reno says, oh, but we won't have warp drive propulsion, whatever you don't have when you just have the saucer. And Ake's like, it's fine. I'll be back for it. I'm not letting them keep my ship. We'll be back for this ship, but we need to get out of here for now. So the little saucer part comes up, and everything else is held in the tractor beams, and then they go, pew, and they like zoom out. So I guess it still has warp drive. And the saucer, that's neat. So they warp out, and they get to Federation space, to like the border of Federation space, but it's surrounded by a red glow, because thankfully these mines glow red. I think, I don't know, like that's the visual that we got because we needed to see where the barriers were, but I am not sure if the mines themselves glow red or if it was some kind of like, I don't remember this part, if they did something in order for their sensors to detect where the mines were and then the image looked red. I don't know. In any case, they see just red everywhere and they're like, ruh-roh. And they scan it and they're like, oh no, Braca has made like a bajillion of these mines, and he has deployed them in such a way that it has wrapped up all of Federation space in this nice little bubble, so that if a single ship crosses this barrier in either direction, the mine is going to go off, and presumably a chain reaction. I'm assuming that was implied, that a chain reaction would go off, and then it would just destroy all of subspace and lots of loss of life and no more warp travel and bad things happen, right? It would just be this big space nuke. So they come up and they're just like Omega, yes, thank you. So they're right at the edge of the barrier and they're like, oh no, what are we going to do? So that's pretty bad. In the meantime, Caleb is still cradling his mom and it's like, help me, you know, so the doctor like takes them over to sickbay, and after having a moment with Sam, where the doctor hugs Sam and is just like, don't ever do something like that again. And she's like, I'm sorry, Dad. And that little moment was really sweet. But I wanted more moments, but that little moment was sweet. And anyways, the doctor, you know, fixes her up and tells Caleb, like, she's going to be fine. It just was a little bit of internal damage or whatever he says. She'll be right as rain. And, she, you know, he's doing his little thing of scanning and healing and repairing and whatever he's doing. And she opens her eyes and the first thing she sees is his comm badge, which is the Starfleet insignia. And so she sees it and she starts freaking out because She does not have good memories with Starfleet, because the last time she was dealing with Starfleet, they put her in prison for 20 years. She had to break out. So, and she's been on the run ever since. So she sees a Starfleet comm badge and she starts freaking out. And Caleb's like, Mom, it's okay, you're fine. And so she's looking around like, what is going on? And she sees Caleb, and then she looks, and then Captain Ake walks into the room, like in slow motion with a serious face. This is the woman who has ruined Anisha's entire life, stolen her child from her, put her in prison after promising lenience and I'll work with you and we'll figure it out. And none of that happened. She walks in and she's just like, hello, Mrs. Muir. And Caleb's mom is just looking at her, and then it's like fade to black. And that is how the episode ended, which was a good place to end, actually, because there should be a lot of big reactions, but we can save it till next time. You know what I mean? Like we can save the big reactions until nice seeing you, Nadia. We can save the big reactions until the next episode, but we need to have them. Kind of like when Caleb like reconnected with his mom. It was like they just had this moment where they were just like looked at each other, and then there was another moment later where they could unpack it. That's kind of how I'm feeling now. It's like we need more unpacking, but we didn't need it in this episode. There was a lot of stuff going on in this episode. This episode just did many things, so we didn't need more things. That was a perfect place to end it. Jonathan says, I was surprised that Anisha didn't die. I was expecting the whole trope where they kill off a major unseen character as soon as they're revealed. Yeah, same. I was happy she didn't die, though, because I was like, seriously, we had her for like 20 minutes. I think if we add up all the time that she's been on this entire show, it could add up to one episode. Like she's been in one episode and we're already going to kill her off. Like at least give her 2 episodes, especially when she's such an important character. So that's where it ends. So that's where it ends on a cliffhanger, and we're going to wrap up that cliffhanger next week, hopefully. And hopefully not end up with an additional cliffhanger at the end of next week's episode, which I don't think so, because they've been really consistent on the show. Every episode's like tied in a bow. So that's what I'm expecting. Final thoughts. I wanted more of Sam and the Doctor. I wanted more of seeing their, I did. When Grace says, did you catch that was a callback from the Omega Directive from Voyager? I did catch that was a callback from the Omega Directive. And I will say that this episode made Omega seem a lot more dangerous and scary than it seemed in the Omega Directive episode of Voyager, where it was just like, we need to destroy this particle, and it's so important we destroy it. And Seven was like, but it's perfection. We can't destroy perfection. And it's kind of like, okay, I guess I didn't really get the gravity of the Omega particle and why it mattered in Voyager. I did get the callback to that in this episode. But in this episode, it was like, oh, it destroys all of like subspace, and it's really bad, and it's a big bomb, and it's going to destroy everything. It made more sense here than it did there. But yes, I did catch it. So some of my other thoughts, I did want more Sam and the Doctor. We did get that moment of like, you know, there was another moment where she said, I stole my dad's access codes. That's why I'm able to steal a shuttle or something like that. So I love that she's still calling him dad. I just want more of their relationship. I don't have to have it right now, though. We can definitely unpack it more in the next season. But I kind of wanted it now because it's on the heels of last week's episode. So it feels more emotionally salient. Like it makes more sense placed now. But I will also take it later. Jaden and Tarima stowed away on the Athena. I left that part out. Jaden and Tarima stowed away during this whole like evacuate the cadets. We're gonna go after the other cadets. So they hid in like a shuttle bay or something. They hid somewhere, and they were discovered at some point, like halfway through the episode. And Captain Ake was just like, "What are you two doing?" And Tarima was like, "Oh well, we hit our life signs because we want to go after Caleb and the crew and see if they were okay." Like it just, I don't know. It reminds me of Kindergarten Cop, where the little girl is like, "I'm a princess, not a policeman." It's like they're just trying to like defend themselves with no real defense, and which is fine. Turns out they don't need a defense because they didn't get in trouble. She's just like, go to your rooms and like don't come out until I say so or something like that. And they're like, okay, and I just was, I don't know. My guess is they will come in handy in this next episode, but we never see them again. We don't see them for the rest of the episode. We see them in the beginning. We see them in this moment when they were stowing away, and we don't see them again. And my guess is we need them for some reason in that last episode. So they have to be here. Maybe Caleb's mom will get to see that Caleb has a girlfriend, and that'll be some important piece of information. Maybe, and she also can read people, so maybe she'll read something about Anisha that will something. Then also Jaden, I'm guessing, is there because the whole like you're my chosen brother thing, so that Caleb still has family when Anisha inevitably dies, which is one of my predictions. But like, I don't know. But for this episode, there was no point. There was no point of them being in this episode. So also what I thought was kind of funny was, why didn't Occam stow away? Occam's not a part of the group. You know, why wasn't he in this why wasn't he invited to the family naming ceremony? Why wasn't he also stowing away, because these are his friends too? Like, where's this dude at? But what's funny is I didn't think about that until like after the episode was over. I was like, oh yeah, where's Occam? So maybe he's not that much of a part of the crew then, if I didn't even remember. Another thought, I want an Anisha action figure, like so much. Like I want the figure of her like with her arm to the side with the little phaser pistol. Like that's what I want. I want her doing that pose. Like, Paramount Plus, when you watch this episode, this live stream, listen to my requests, please. I would like an Anisha action figure. I will purchase it. I will play with it. I will love it. Another thing, okay, I'm going to read the chat before I go into this, because I have a whole rant at the end of this episode where I was just like, come on. So I have a whole rant, but let me read what you have to say before I go on my rant. DJ Magic says, a better question no one is asking is, why are there so many faux Omega particle devices created to begin with? Did he steal all those devices though? I thought he stole like the Omega particles themselves, or he stole like the ability to make all these devices or something like that. Like I thought, and maybe I got this wrong, but I thought he stole something that allowed him to make all of these mines. But like the mines weren't pre-made. DJ Magic says, and if the Romulans can use a black hole for propulsion and the Omega particle is more powerful than that, why did they not use it as a power source for warp travel instead of dilithium? Maybe the Omega particle is too destructive, and the black hole that Romulans use is an artificial black hole. So it's more control ? For what an artificial black hole would be. So maybe the Omega particle is too unpredictable. Don't know. Jonathan says, I'd wager that Noose Braga had Anisha do some work on the space bombs, and because she faked her death, he wouldn't anticipate her knowing how to defuse them. Did some work on the space bombs, and because she faked her death, he wouldn't anticipate her knowing how to defuse them. I like that. Yeah, I like that. I have not that prediction. That's a really good prediction, but have a similar idea of what might happen. When Grace says, the Omega particles destroy subspace, making warp impossible. If they go wrong, you get a new burn. Yeah, but the question was, why couldn't the Omega particles be used in propulsion in some way? In the same way that like an artificial black hole was somehow used for propulsion. Could an Omega particle somehow be used for propulsion? And I guess Wind Grace is saying no. Because they don't help propulsion, they stop it in its tracks. I don't know. Okay, so here's my rant. So I just feel like every story does not know death for the Pirate Queen. See, but I don't know. I think there might be a death for the Pirate Queen, but I'm not in that section yet. Okay, so let me get on my soapbox so I can get off and then talk about my predictions. So I feel like every episode where there's a big save the day moment does not have to be so grandiose. In this episode, they have to save the entire Federation from, space nuclear winter. And with the episode with Jaden, I really love that episode. He saved the entire Klingon Empire single-handedly and found them a new world. And I just feel like the stories don't need to be quite so big, because if we went from saving an entire people, a whole culture and civilization, to now saving the entire Federation, what's next? Are we going to have to save all of space and time? Are we going to put Doctor Who out of work? We need to save the whole fabric of existence. Like, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I just feel like we're going to run out of giant things to save. But if, on the other hand, the stories were more personal and were more individual, I feel like we would never run out of those stories. So, for example, an episode that highlights a community, like Inner Light, that episode that's just about this one village. And yes, their whole planet is going to die because their star is dying. But it's really about the community, this family, this guy and his wife and his kids and his friends and his neighbors. Like, it's a very small story in that sense. They're not saving the entire Klingon Empire, but it's super impactful. It's a huge fan favorite. It's one of the favorite episodes of TNG of ever, because it's so impactful to see the life over time of this small community. Or I think about one of my favorite episodes from Voyager, Drone, where we get the new Borg drone 1, who's basically like Seven's, surrogate son. and she has to teach him like what it means to be a member of the crew and all these things. And I just really loved One. I just loved this character. And then when he dies, spoiler alert if you haven't seen that episode, when he dies at the end of the episode, it's just like, it's heart-wrenching. And then you see him just like, all of his systems failing, and 7 of 9 is like, let the doctor help you, let him assist you, comply, you're hurting me. And he's like, you will adapt, I cannot go on, or the Borg will keep pursuing me, that would put you in danger, that would put Voyager in danger, and he just like ends himself, or doesn't allow himself to be healed. That's so powerful. It's so impactful, like it's so moving, and it's such a small story. So I feel like this show could benefit from that. Every time they save the day, or even with Darum and his stupid wedding, that episode where he was going to become the king of Kionia. Why does this boy need to be the king of anything? We could have still had an episode, still with an arranged marriage, still with trying to please his parents and meet their expectations. And it could have just been random girl from the town, or it could have been really a powerful family. And that episode would have been the same. He does not need to be the ruler, the patriarch of an entire planet. You know what I mean? So that'd be my one criticism, is like, now we're saving the entire Federation, so what could we possibly save in season 2? You know what I mean? Like, what's bigger than that for Starfleet that could be saved, other than, like I said, time and space? But even with this episode, it's like these omega particles are going to explode and it's going to destroy subspace. So they're saving the entire Federation and all of space. So I guess the only thing left to save is all of time and history. But come on now, like, it doesn't have to be so big. I think if they made the scope a little bit smaller, we could get more interesting episodes. But that's assuming that it still digs deep, right? Because Inner Light went through a whole lifetime, or Drone went through like the drone growing up, or Real Life, which is an episode we talked about last week, where the doctor had that holographic family. Like, that goes through what it's like to have a new family. Like that, or even the episode with Jaden, where we got to see some of the flashbacks of his family. And that was just like little tiny bites of outside life, and it was interesting. So I think if it's plumbed deeply enough, we could have some really interesting episodes that are smaller in scope, that don't save the entire planet, the whole Federation of planets, an entire people group. Like, it doesn't have to be that big, but it could still be impactful. Okay, soapbox exited. Wingrace says, because a single warp core breach makes it impossible to ever go warp in that area again. So that means every time a ship explodes, the sector is broken forever. So that's what he's saying, that the omega particles would not be a great fuel source. Okay, thanks, Wingrace. Now to my predictions, for real this time. So one is, I think Anisha is going to go off on Captain Ake, or she should. I think she's going to be pissed at Caleb for like betraying her, or siding with Starfleet, not telling her. I don't know, something around that. But she can't be pissed for too long, because it's her long lost son. Come on now. 3, DJ Magix. I still want her to be the pirate queen, because I just love that idea. Like, I love that Anisha's secretly pulling the strings for Anus Baraka. I don't know, something about that is just so delicious. I don't want her to be the bad guy, because I really like her, and like, I don't want her to die, but also that would just be such a twist. So I don't know, I still want pirate queen. My prediction is Baraka will die, because he's done so much bad stuff, and he's a bad dude, that he just has to come to an end. However, the only ironically satisfying endings could come at the hands of either Ake, Caleb, or Anisha, and no one else. It can't be happenstance. It can't be he accidentally sets off his own bomb and ends himself. Like, no, it has to be one of these 3 people that bring an end to him, either Ake, Caleb, or Anisha. And it makes the most sense to be Caleb or Anisha. Now, Ake has some beef with him, yes, but like, he's the reason why Anisha and Caleb couldn't have been together for all these 15 years. So that leads me to my other prediction, which is that Caleb's mom is going to die heroically, saving Caleb and the entire Federation. And in the process of that, she's going to take Baraka with her. So my prediction is that Anisha is going to die and, I don't know, set up an explosion or something on the same ship with Baraka. And then, so Anisha and Baraka die, but she does it in some kind of way that, like in the episode Nemesis, where in the movie Nemesis, where Data like beams Picard back so that he could stay and die in the explosion, something like that, where it's like this last second twist or shake up where Caleb gets beamed to safety, and then she sacrifices herself and she takes out Baraka and single-handedly saves the entire Federation. And my prediction is that because if she comes back, then Caleb will choose his mom over staying in the Federation. And so that relationship that he's built with Ake will have to change or end. And I just don't see that happening. However, the other potential thing that could happen is that maybe she survives miraculously and is not the pirate queen. And is just a lady. just a lady, just a person. And she survives, and they beat Braca some other way, and everybody lives happily ever after. Now, if that's the case, what are we gonna do with this character? Now, we could have her join Starfleet as an instructor. This is my cousin's idea, is that she would join as an instructor and she would teach I don't know, like innovative mechanics or something like that, because she's really good at putting things together, some kind of engineering course or whatever. So she could become an instructor, so that way she can stick around. She and Caleb can develop a relationship, and potentially more tension or dramatic filled episodes could happen later between her and Caleb and Starfleet and Ake and whatever. I don't foresee that happening, but it could. Or if she's still alive, maybe she becomes, my thing was like, if she's still alive, she'll have to be sent away far, far away, so that Caleb, will still have his relationship with the Academy and with Captain Ake. In that case, she would have to be like an ambassador or something, or because she knew all of Noose Braca's contacts, maybe she goes all like rogue Sherlock Holmes, and she goes to find all of his contacts and bring them to justice or something like that. Something that sends her far away, and then she and Caleb just keep in touch through those like holographic voice FaceTime calls or something. But I just have a feeling she's not going to make it. I just feel like my prediction, she's not going to make it out of episode 10. Like, I just don't think she's going to make it out. Yeah. My cousin's prediction, another prediction, is that, and I thought this was interesting, and I was like, oh, they're totally not going to do this though. He was like, well, the Discovery can just save them, because the Discovery has the spore drive travel. So they can just like poof out of Federation space. They can just like poof, poof. And they can just come out and like do whatever, and then poof, poof, and go back in. And I was like, oh yeah, they do have a spore drive. And then I was like, how did we end that in season 5 of Discovery? They still have the spore drive, right? Like, is Stamets still the fuel source in season 5? Do they use warp sometimes? I honestly don't remember. But that's what my cousin was saying. He was like, I think Discovery is just going to show up and like save the day. And then I was like, I don't know. They never really have help. They always somehow MacGyver their way into victory just with a paperclip and a tin can. So I was just like, I don't think they're going to bring in Discovery. I think they're just going to like save the day in some really out of pocket way. Like Anisha used to work with the Venari Rawl, or has learned a bunch of stuff on her travels throughout the last 15 years or whatever, however you want to spin that. And so she knows how to deactivate the bombs because she knows something. And I think DJ Maddox or somebody said it earlier, like, was it Jonathan G, who's like, she knew the codes and they thought she died, so like they didn't think to change the codes or something like that I could definitely see. And if there is any kind of cliffhanger, my guess would be it'd be something where like Caleb's mom is alive and like leaves to go pursue her own life, and then Caleb goes with her, and then we get a situation kind of like in Lower Decks where Tendi left Starfleet to go do her thing, and then it's like, is she going to come back? So that's the only kind of cliffhanger I could foresee, is like Caleb leaves, and then the question is he going to come back? When Grace says that bad woman did recognize her before she got killed. Oh, did she? I missed that. Did she? Because I thought she said, are you with him? And she was like, no. And then she was like, what are you here for? And she was like, oh, I'm here to like trade parts or something like that. Did she recognize her? Huh. And I'm also trying to think, was her like face all covered so that she wouldn't be recognized? I don't know. I have to watch it again. Oops. When Grace says, so you aren't expecting a Discovery cameo being the only spore ship. Discovery isn't space dock for retrofitting. It was mentioned in a past episode. But can it come out of space dock? Can it just do that? What? Okay. When Grace says, she said, wait a minute, I know you're, and that's when Anisha shot her. Oh, I just thought she opened fire because she was not winning this like argument, or she wasn't persuading them. Ooh, okay. Okay, When Grace, you just gave me new hope. Maybe we will get the Pirate Queen. Maybe we will see Anisha come back and be like, she was in charge all along. It was Agatha all along. Discovery was on episode 5 recruiting the people at the starbase. rescuing the people at the starbase. Oh yeah, Vance did say that. Vance did say Discovery is looking through the wreckage, getting the escape pods. That is true. So Discovery should be like up and running. The only reason I'm not expecting a Discovery cameo is because like that's too easy. It's because Discovery could just save the day single-handedly, the same way that Athena always saves the day single-handedly. So that's my only thinking, is that they want the Athena crew to be the stars of the show and not like some random other crew that we haven't seen because this isn't their show. You know what I mean? But that could be cool. And it could be cool if we could get a cameo of like, if we could see Captain Burnham, if we could see Saru. Well, Saru wouldn't be on the ship. But if we could see, you know, some people from Discovery, not just Tilly and Reno, that would be super cool. I just don't anticipate it. I just think they're going to have to get out of this jam on their own, and they're just not going to mention Discovery and hope no one else thinks of it. When Grace says the cliffhanger that I want is the copy doctor from Living Witness to show up and say, "Hey, honey, I'm home." Yes, he just shows up out of the blue, and he's like, "Oh, Omega bombs. I've already found a solution for this back when I was living on the planet with the dinosaurs," or whatever. Like he just comes up with some like solution because he's the doctor. Yeah. So I don't know. You know what? He shows up with his son from that Blink planet. So yes, that is it. Thank you so much for coming, those of you who are watching live. Thank you so much for those of you who are watching on the replay. Join us next week where we will review the last and final episode of season 1 of Starfleet Academy. And hopefully I'll have Wi-Fi at my house and we'll have a larger experience. Okay, Grace, do we want to see the Salamander kids again, though? Do we want to see them? Because I don't want to see them. I don't want to see the Salamander kids. I want to let them live their best life on that random M-class planet. All right, I will see you next week. Same time, same place. And we will do the last episode. And then we'll talk about at the end of next week what episode we're going to do next. Okay, have a great night, everybody. Now I have to figure out how to actually end a live stream. I don't know how to do that. Maybe an X? Oh, yeah.